Hello,
All right.
welcome everyone.
There'll be a few more people trickling in, I think, but we'll make a start.
We wanted to do the webinar just to give people a sense of how we kind of share together and what you can expect from the upcoming event in May. And we just love any opportunity that we can get to share with Dicken, listen to Dicken, and we want people to feel that they can ask questions and bring anything to this. So we just wanted to make ourselves available. Each of us will probably share a little bit about why we're so inspired to do the work that we do and why we're inspired to all work together. But I'm just really excited to have so many people on the call and to have Dicken here with us.
So thank you, Dicken, for joining us. We've been talking about this for a long time now. And we've been on plenty of walks around the Lake District, which is where the event's actually going to be held, which is in the English Lake District. And on these walks, we've talked over and over again about having a collaboration with yourself. 3 days where we can really start to explore the magic of life. And I think it's on our walks that we've shared. I know that's really where we've gone. We've had some beautiful conversations where we've discussed the nature of not just the human mind, but the nature of life itself. We've kind of taken this into places where this isn't just about the human psychology, which quite often this seems people tend to almost try and use the principles almost as like a human psychology, but more we seem to have had conversations more in the depth of the magic behind the very nature of existence and the unseen power that sits at the heart of everything. And I feel like the conversations that we've had along these walks, doing some of these beautiful walks through the Lake District, I've really felt there's a power in them. And I think that's why we wanted to finally get this going and pull our fingers out and get cracking with this conversation with you and get something going in the north of England as well, especially in the northwest. I know a lot happens over in the northeast, but not a lot happens in the northwest. So it'd be really nice for the northwest of England. So this isn't just exclusive for the northwest of England, but to have it in the northwest of England where it hasn't got the three principles don't really have the presence as yet to just to give it some life up here. So Dicken, thank you so much for joining us. And I don't know if you would like to have a talk about something.
First of all, it's just great to see that so many people are able to join us and to see familiar names and friends and all the friends to be. Thank you for coming, folks, really. And
Because that meant that it's cut the whole
thing. Of scheming about doing something together in the Lake District. Quite a bit of time together up in the Lake District, and a few years ago I did my DNA testing and find out that I have 75% British Isle DNA. And so I said, no wonder I feel so at home when I'm up in the Lake District. And when I was in college, I studied the Lake District poets. And so it's really been fun being there. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world, and so I'm glad we can do our retreat. I'm just really excited about being able to have 3 days to get together, get quiet, hang out, and be open to what new and fresh comes to us. Because the more I have respect for what's new and fresh that comes to us when our minds get quiet, the more I see the magic in life. Jen and Dave and I were just talking about this magic. I mean, you've all experienced moments, haven't you, where life has felt like it's just magical? I really, honestly, I haven't met anybody who doesn't have moments like that. I just didn't know that more and more you can live in that magic, or more accurately, you can realize that you've been living in it all this time and you didn't know it. we were talking about what it means to be in magic or to experience the magic in life. I mean, that's what I've loved about learning the principles. Very simply, they've helped me wake up out of thinking that veils over that magic. And to wake up out of that in the same way we wake up out of a bad dream and realize that life isn't the way it looks, right? That there's the veiled version of life, but that's not an accurate view of how life really looks. As Sid Banks would say, that's not seeing life as it is. That's seeing life as it isn't, right? So this unveiling process, I'm so excited about this unveiling process. And then there's this deeper knowing emerges through all of us. I've seen no exception to this. And when that emerges, we see life through different eyes. Literally, it looks different. When I look at my wife through magic eyes, she's a completely different person when I'm looking through the veil. She's awfully glad that I've learned this understanding, because it can get old when you look at life through the old thinking that we all have. Oh, it gets old. There's no magic in that. It's just the same old, and judgments and complaints and always waiting for or looking for something better. So living in dissatisfaction, that's all part of that world, the veiled world. The curtain that drops down, and we're trying to see life, but we got this curtain in front of us. Some people call that curtain ego. That's all it is. Pretty soon we get identified with that and think that's really how we think, that's really how we feel, that's who we really are. And the magic goes. That happens for me even still if I get caught up in that veiled thinking. So we're going to spend 3 days exploring what helps any of us to wake up out of this veiled filter and to begin to see the beauty wherever you look, or discover a love that doesn't reject anything, even the veil. I found a great quote yesterday by my teacher, Sid Banks, and he's saying what you discover is a different kind of love. It's a love for the whole world. Everything. The little bugs, the plants, the trees, the butterflies, the stormy weather, our stormy weather. All of it. All of it is unconditional. And I know everybody has had moments of this, and it does begin to feel like the magic has come back into our lives. We feel youthful, we feel excited, we feel alive. I like the word enthusiasm. The Latin prefix "en" Enthusiasm, en means to fill. Enthusiasm means spirit, theos. It's where theology comes from. It's the study of spirit. Enthusiasm means to fill with spirit. And I have never seen anybody in my life, when they fill with spirit, that they don't experience this magic we're talking about. Even when you're feeling down, you can experience magic. I used to think, oh, I have to wait until I'm over this down. I have to wait until I'm better. I have to wait until I'm in a good mood before I can experience love, magic. Not true. Not true. Not true. I've seen a lot about that just in the last year. So anyways, what did you call it, Dave? Conjurer? So there's something about a conjurer in there. It's like,
yeah, I mean, we do a lot of events. we do an awful lot of events, which means that we have to come up with an awful lot of titles. And each
where
one
did that come out garbled?
Yeah, that came out garbled.
Dave, say that one again. That just the connection went kaflooey. Just
bear with us. Our connection isn't great. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay, that's better now. That's better now.
Our internet's in and out tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do an awful lot of events, and therefore we have to come up with an awful lot of titles. And it was actually whilst we were in London and getting off one of the tube trains, and there's this massive sign saying, "Mind the gap."
Mm.
And I don't know, it just struck me as quite a sentence to have plastered everywhere on the underground, in a place where stress is rife, where quite often you'll find people are quite hostile, and living in this world of rush and busy, there's this massive sign that says, "Mind the gap." And in it, as I read it, there was this thing kind of, there's something in that title, there's something in that message on the floor that everybody just walks over and doesn't pay any attention to. And it kind of struck me how, when there was a gap in my understanding of mind, I really struggled. I felt like I was part of the rat race. I felt like life had this ability to kind of totally consume me, to the point where, I mean, me personally, I was suicidal. And so as I was reading this thing, and as it was starting to make sense to me, I thought, well, perhaps we'll use that as the title for when we do our thing with Dicken. So Mind the Gap is basically bringing it all back together, to talk about the nature of mind, to start to get deeper understanding of mind. And the more I've realized about the nature of mind, the more I realized just what a phenomenal mystery we're actually talking about, and just what a phenomenal mystery we actually are. And then the next part of it is everyday magic for the unwitting Conjurer. And this there's something that has always struck me since I've come across the principles, and it's always been this word magic. I don't know, personally, I did live a life of mundane, where every day was a struggle. Every day was ordinary. Very kind of everyday, boring struggle, human existence, tied up in work and money and finance, whatever. But when I woke up to the principles, it was a moment of, I can't explain it, but it was just pure magic. It wasn't a magic from it was just pure divine magic. And that pure divine magic had the power to transform an individual, myself, who was somebody who suffered with depression, anxiety and anger, and was very violent, had the ability to change. Just one glimpse of this magic has the ability to completely and utterly transform a life. And I think the most beautiful thing about that is that we are these unwitting conjurers. We are literally conjuring into existence an experience of life. And when we are unwitting, we can create mayhem for ourselves. So I feel like the principles is a gateway. It's like a gateway to a never-ending magic. Again, the more I've seen about the principles, the more I realize there is no end to being able to see in depth the fantastic possibilities that actually exist. And as Dicken was saying, there is only one thing that gets in the way of this, and it's a thin veil. So I'm really excited about, at the moment, I'm putting together some articles I'm passionate about the environment and wildlife, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to do this with Dicken, because Dicken's enthusiasm for wildlife is fantastic, and we've had some awesome conversations. But I'm putting together at the moment some articles for hopefully BBC Wildlife magazine about how the greatest threat to our environment is the human belief that it is separate. And in this separation, we are causing mayhem for all other living beings and ourselves. But as we start to understand the nature of mind, and we start to understand the nature of separate reality, we will start to find our commonality. And in our commonality, I'm not just talking between human, I'm talking between every single life form. As we start to wake up to that commonality, there is something in connection, and we call it love. And as human beings start to wake up from the dark ages of understanding mind to the infinite potential that every single being is, they will start to find this connection within themselves. And it is a connection that is not limited to the physical form of the human. So I'm excited for us who get to get glimpses of how the principles work. And I'm excited for humanity in the long run, because I genuinely believe that this simple understanding is the key to all problems that we face. It's the key to sorting out our environmental issues. It's the key to sorting out all problems with greed. It's the key to solving all the problems that we've been working in South Africa quite lately. And somebody came up to us and were like, God, the problems in South Africa are too big. This was after visiting a soup kitchen full of 300 homeless people. The problem's too big. And Jen and I look at this person and go, no, the problem isn't big. The problem can be solved so simply. And it has nothing to do with throwing more money at it or changing the world, anything in the world. But it has everything to do with people changing their minds. As people start to wake up from the beliefs that they've carried and observed each other through in South Africa, it has to change. So this, to me, is the key. It's the key to progression in humanity. It's the key to evolution in humanity. It's the key to all the problems that we face in the world. And it's so simple. So the title is Mind the Gap, Everyday Magic for the Unwitting Conjurer. It's going to be 3 days of exploring what we've come to understand, what people in the room have come to understand. And I personally am really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think any opportunity that I've had to either be on an event where Dicken is sharing or where we've been co-facilitating, it feels like something my heart opens a bit more. And I did a webinar recently where I just said that 14 years ago when I came across this, I thought I'd found something, and I could kind of speak about it, and I had no idea that, you know, 14 years later, I'd still realise I'm just at the beginning of what there is. There's still so much to see, but the amount of love and gratitude and change that's happened just with that glimpse has been incredible. And a little bit like Dicken was saying earlier, it feels like there is this freedom that can come, and it's not about any type of feeling or any type of experience, and not having ones that we don't like, but there's a magic and an awe for our experience, and that's where the freedom lies. And I think for a long time I thought the freedom was going to come when somehow I transcended the human experience and always lived without the veil. And I think over the years I've gained so much more respect for the illusory nature of this and how deceptive it really, really is. And I think the more compassion and love I've found for myself in that, I've found in other people. And I always remember the first time meeting Dicken and hearing him speak at the Pransky and Associates office, and just warming to him immediately, and then him taking us home and making us some lunch, and then different trips where we've got to go on walks or go to the store with you, and you see that this isn't something that you do for a living, this isn't something to apply, it's something that just you embody and that starts to live through you. And I feel like I was so inspired by that, because Dicken and I have shared kind of similar experiences of shyness and anxiety prior to this. And I think, you know, it was 2009 when I met Dicken, and I'd changed so much, but still the idea that I could feel more and more comfortable in people's presence and more accepting was exciting and hopeful for me. And I feel like every time we get to do an event together, I kind of see how much Dicken has changed, and that his understanding is not static, and that my understanding isn't static. It evolves and it changes, and there's that movement. And I feel I've kind of been on these walks with Dave and Dicken where I've just heard them speak about their love of the natural world and what they see, and then how they kind of bounce off each other. So I'm really excited just to kind of see, you know, that's in brief conversations on walks, what it will be like over the 3 days where we explore something. And I think we all bring something so different to it, but I know that there is this kind of magic that happens in the room when we get together and look to this place. So I'm excited to kind of see. I've kind of been joking that I'm not sure how much I'll get to speak, because I think both of you are such incredible storytellers. But I know that I'm getting bolder, and I do butt in sometimes.
You are getting stronger.
But I love to sit back and listen, because I feel like I just feel like a student of this as much as a teacher. And I know that, you know, what comes up, I always gain so much from these events, and you kind of think you know something and then you see it again. So I'm really excited to see what comes of this.
Should we open it up to questions? Does anybody have any questions? I don't know if people are struggling, but
I'm just checking in case I can see people's faces where they think they're speaking but they're muted. But hopefully everyone knows how to unmute themselves.
Yeah. Or there's also a chat box where you can type in your message or your question or anything like
that. I've got a question.
Hello.
How do you stop overthinking?
Good question, Ishka.
You don't. it's like the wind. It would be like saying, how do you stop the wind? It's very easy to have thinking about our thinking. Like, I don't like that I'm thinking so much. I wish I didn't think so much. I should stop thinking. You know, Ishka, it's so good to see you. Really good to see you. Gosh, it's been a while. So, you know, for years I tried to stop my thinking. And all that did was give me a lot more thinking about my thinking. It's been fun for me holding babies. I've had a lot of chance to hold babies in the last number of years. They don't try and stop anything. They just don't have any thinking or story about what they're experiencing, so they can have all kinds of experiences naturally that just flow through. And as we get older, we start being able to think, and we can do a lot of thinking, right? And then more and more, when I realize that I'm feeling tension, that's very friendly. It's just reminding me that my natural state is like a baby. And it's pretty amazing that when I stop thinking about myself and my thinking and my experience, this deeper wisdom in nature, in life, takes care of it. So I don't stop my thinking. This deeper wisdom knows how to have it come and go naturally like it did when I was a baby. I just thought at a certain point that was my job. And I got really tired out trying to do that job, you know. And so it's normal to at times have a lot of thinking about things. I do. I just don't think about the fact that I have a lot of thinking as much as I used to. Right? If I start thinking about it, then it feels even worse. If I start trying to stop it, fix it, change it, control it, that's a lot more thinking going on. Ishka, is that helpful?
Yeah, very much so.
Tell me what you're hearing, because I love it when you share what you're hearing. So I'd love to hear what you're hearing.
Wait, what do you mean?
When you said that it was helpful, what's helpful to you?
Well, it's helpful to know that because everyone feels it, and I've realised that everyone at school feels it. You just don't realise that, and that not everyone's perfect.
That's for sure. You're in good company. You're in good company.
It's really easy to look at other people's lives and think they're sorted, isn't it?
Yeah.
Compare ourselves to other people and I want to be like them, I want to be like them, I want to be like them. And all this time, we're trying to be anybody else but ourselves. And I really think that the most powerful thing we can ever be is just being ourselves. And then I also think that the most powerful thing anybody can ever understand, before anything that comes at school, forgive me your dad, old headmaster, and forgive me any teacher that's on. There's one more important thing, they're far more important than any maths, English or French. It's more important than any qualification. And I really feel it's learning to understand how we work, how our mind works. Because when we start to understand how our mind works, and we realize that all the turmoil that we live in, it's a creation of our mind. It's like just knowing that means we don't have to change the world, or we can if we wish to. But like Dicken's saying, you know, we don't have as much. When you start to understand it, You don't have to think about the fact that you've got lots of thinking. You can experience it. And that is freedom. I love your question, Ish.
Yeah, me too. Gets right to the heart of it.
It really does. Thank you, Ish.
You're welcome.
Get to bed.
Not really.
Okay, good. You've got 20 more minutes.
Anybody else, any comments or questions? That's my favorite part of webinars, you know. It's very favorite. It's okay if you don't, but I mean, it's always nice. The three of us certainly don't find ourselves at loss for words very often. So.
No.
I feel like commenting a bit. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. I have 2 kids. One of them has been in school for 3 years, and then she's been out of school for 2 years. The other kid is 7 and has never gone to school. And she's never going to go to school unless I make like a free school where they can roam free. And it's so amazing to see that spirit. That sometimes I get scared and either learning, you know, but when the trust comes back to me about the trust in the human nature to just learn and be at peace, and I can see them evolving, and it's like, man, I learned so much from them. Because me, I don't know if I think it's part of it is because I'm an adult, and part of it is because I've been at school for 20 years, and I always do stuff, and my oldest daughter, she kind of teaches me, you know, why keep doing it if you don't have any fun at it anymore, especially when we're playing a computer game and I get a goal and I want to. It's really amazing to see and in myself also develop the trust that my kids will learn naturally. And they just need the environment. They just need, if there's books in the environment, they'll learn to read. And if there's YouTube where they hear English, they'll learn English. And yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that to remember that we're natural learners, and to be able to kind of share that with your children, that yeah, there's nothing. I've got my own opinions about school and the schooling system, but we're built to learn, and we learn so much in those first early years, and we don't even know we're learning, and then we start to have so much thinking about the fact that we need to learn, and that we need to achieve, and we forget that it's something that's built into us. And I think it's amazing that you are learning to trust that, and trust that in yourself, and to trust that in your children. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks, man. I've been writing a book, and I think I'm calling it The Nature of Life, and it's observations about the natural world that I've had, that have helped me start to understand myself and other people. And when I started to wake up to just a simple fact that we are nature, we are a part of nature. We're not separate. I used to be a tree surgeon, and I was once just working down the road not far from here, and I found this beautiful spider web. And in my book, I'm calling this little chapter "Lessons from a Spider." And my mate Ed was with me. A couple of you have met Ed online now. but Ed was working with me, and I was looking at this spider web and how this spider had constructed this web in this hedge, and it was like a hammock. And it was anchored here, and it was anchored here, and it was anchored here. The spider had really taken into account its environment when it built this web. It had used all the throngs growing out, which had grown out of it. This hedge hadn't been trimmed for a long time, so it was really kind of frizzy looking. And it had used all these different anchor points and all these different tensions of cobweb to make this phenomenal insect catcher. It wasn't a horizontal one where insects flew into it and they got stuck. This was like it had made a fabric out of this, out of its silk. And then it was just anchored everywhere. And I called my mate Ed over. No, in fact, no. Ed came up. Ed came up to me. I won't tell you what he said, but it was along the lines of, "What are you looking at now, lad?" And I was like, "This spider web." And Ed knelt down next to me, and I was like, "Look at this, Ed." I said, "What kind of intelligence builds this?" And he went, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, look at it." I said, "It's anchored here, it's anchored here, it's pulled down in the middle, and we watched this insect falling, and this insect just naturally just made its way into this little like oubliette at the bottom, a little funnel, where it's pulled so tight with this web, it was pulled so tight. And then the spider just went underneath it, went through the fabric, nipped it and walked around and picked up its little morsel to eat." And Ed took one look at it and he summed it up. He said, "They're like tiny physicists." And it hit me. It was like, yes, they're like tiny physicists. They're like structural engineers would build a bridge. They have to take into account the environment. There is awareness of the environment. What are we building on? All right, whereabouts are we going to start here? What material am I going to use? It had used different silks throughout the web to create this structure. And then it started, after I thought about this for a while, I started to gain insight into it about intelligence and how we can quite easily confuse education and intelligence. Intelligence is absolutely woven into the fabric of life. Intelligence is what creates us. Intelligence is what created the spider. The spider is intelligent. We are intelligent. We're all intelligent. Everything is intelligence. But we quite often confuse education with education and intelligence. And I remember, I haven't finished this chapter, but along halfway down through the chapter, I've talked about how I wish I could go back and tell myself something. That how I did in school is not a reflection of my intelligence. It is a reflection of how interested I was, how much I could retain that information, but it wasn't a reflection of my intelligence, because my intelligence is shown out in so many other ways. And intelligence just is. Intelligence isn't learned. And I think that's the beautiful thing about kids. And this intelligence is something that can never be taken away. We can think that we are unintelligent, but intelligence is the nature of life. It can never be taken away.
We've had an online question, the chat question. Do you think thinking can come from different places? As in, I think I want this thing, but actually that's just conditioned thinking based on what I'm seeing around me. And I think I want, and then a different type of thinking is actually more of an inner guidance or wisdom thought thinking. And if so, how do you tell the difference between the two?
There's one mind. That's what Dave was talking about. He's talking about universal mind, the source and intelligence behind everything in life. And when things take form out of this formless divine energy, the forms are different. So we have so many different kinds of thinking, it's unbelievable. But they all come from the same source. So conditioned thinking is one form or kind of thinking that we do. Thinking that comes up that provides, that makes sense and feels right is a different kind of thinking. So they all come from the same place. That's, the principles are universal. They're the source of everything. Now, there's no question that it can be very helpful to understand the difference between thinking that's filled with judgment and distortion, that sometimes Sid would call that our contaminated thinking. It's not bad. Like we eat food and then we eliminate contamination or we eliminate waste. It's not bad, but it's different. It helps to know the difference between the food and the waste. Right? It helps to know the difference between thoughts that are contaminated and thoughts that nourish. And you can tell by the feeling. Really, I can tell by the feeling. When I'm caught up in my conditioned thinking, there's a certain feeling of tension to it. And when I fall out of all of my thinking, because every bit of personal thinking is conditioned and limited, when I fall out of all of my thinking, there's a different feeling. Different feeling. And then there's more clarity, more perspective, more common sense, more wisdom, if you will. Although true wisdom is a formless intelligence. Once it takes form, it's not wisdom. It's, as Sid would say, it's the echo of truth. It's not truth. But you can tell the difference, and it's helpful to tell the difference, just like it's helpful to tell the difference between healthy food and garbage. You don't want to eat garbage. You don't want to consume that kind of thinking.
Did you want to say anything else? Oh, love that, thank you. Do you want to add anything to it? Or?
Yeah, Louise, did anything else you want to ask about or say at this point? I don't know if that complicated things or made it easier.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi.
Thank you, that really did. And I loved the word that you used there, contaminated thinking. I think that helps to, but for me in my own mind, to say actually, when you said about the restriction, I suppose it's that I notice myself that I tend to get caught up in it, and it does feel very restrictive as opposed to those moments where things just fall away and something comes through. So, but just having that definition for me, I think it's going to help me to distinguish. Like you said, I love the analogy that you used about the food. So it's nice to know what food is junk food and what food is nourishing food. So yeah, that's really cool. Thank you.
Because there's no judgment on the fact that we have contaminated thinking. For, you know, we have an inhale, which is you breathe in oxygen, fresh air, and then there's an exhale, which is a waste product. But that's natural. It's not wrong or bad. So there's nothing wrong with contaminated thinking. But wisdom helps us discriminate between the two. Because it's better to eat healthy food than garbage. It's just common sense, right? And it used to be I'd get upset and I would really pay attention to what I was thinking and think it must be true because I'm feeling so strongly. And I've learned that that's not the thinking I want to pay attention to. And when that falls away, I'm not thinking positive. I'm not trying to think positive. I'm just not eating garbage. And then the beautiful thing about the nature of the mind is, as our mind clears, it brings new and fresh food to us, new and fresh nourishment. Right? We just have to let the contamination flow through naturally. It's just a natural part of life. It's a natural aspect of life. It's the exhale in life. You have food, there's going to be garbage. It's not bad or wrong, but it sure helps to know the difference between the two.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Anyone else got any questions? Or comments?
I don't know if you can see me.
We can.
Hi.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I love that, Dicken. I love thinking about not consuming thought. I didn't think about that in that way before. I wanted to come back to the spider and to say that one of the things that has been amazing for me to learn about spiders is that each spider makes its own web design. So only they eat it after every day, so they don't leave the web up for more than a day. But only that spider makes that beautiful pattern and design, and there's something about that I just wanted to kind of reflect on for a minute about how, talking about what Dave was saying about, what is intelligence, what is success, what is failure, and more, I'm just feeling like the more we can just show up as who we are in this moment each day and let our pattern shine, I think the bigger difference we make in the world, the happier, the more peaceful, the more creative we are. And one of the things I've been noticing, I live in New England, so we had a pretty big blizzard last night, and I noticed that when I'm outdoors in other seasons, being in nature and just looking and noticing the beauty everywhere and the miracles and the magic, it's really obvious for me. Just it's like this doorway that's just always an invitation, always something to see. But when I'm indoors a lot in the winter, and you kind of go more interior and kind of surrounded with all of the things to do, I noticed that I stopped seeing the magic as much. And I guess I have a question for the three of you. Do you notice that too? I mean, I know it's outside in to say it's nature that kind of opens you and brings you to that place, and that's not how it works. I know that. But I do notice that when I'm feeling contained inside, sometimes it's hard for me to see the magic, and I start to feel like there's something I have to do.
I think there's a magic that so many of us are trying to get past. It seems like on this perpetual search, it can be really easy to negate the magic of all experience. The more I keep saying this, the more I understand about this, the more I understand I don't know. But the very nature or the very fact of experience in itself, no matter whether it is in a state of pure joy and love, or whether it is in mundane experience, or whether it's in fear, just the very fact of experience itself is a miraculous mystery. What is this consciousness? What is the power of thought? What is mind? What is it? as we start to gain appreciation for those questions, people will often say, I understand the power of thought. I know what that is. I don't know what consciousness is perhaps, but I've got an idea about mind. The more I've come to see it, the more I've come to understand for myself, I cannot know it. Any idea that I dream up about it is creation. But the principles are pointing to creator. The principles are pure creator. We live in creation. Every single thought and feeling is creation. That's not what we are. Every single experience that we experience is creation. And we go searching for ourselves in this creation. Am I this? Am I that? Am I my name? Am I a three principles facilitator? Am I a good person? Am I a this kind of whatever? We go looking for ourselves in creation. And I really feel like one of the simplest things that anybody can ever realize for their mental well-being, for their state of mind and their ability to be in any situation, the potential exists for peace in any situation, is to recognize that they are not creation, but they are pure creator. Any concept or idea that we think that we are not. It can be quite easy for us to get caught up in the idea that we do need things in the world to be all right. And it can be quite easy for us to look to creation to feel good. But as Dicken was saying earlier on, you know, we're all right no matter what. Whether it is joy or whether it's hell, this is still a divine dream, still a divine mystery, all created of thought. It's a conscious state experiencing. And we can never step out of that.
In other words, so you can find magic anywhere, honestly. If you sat outside in nature long enough, you could easily fall back into your conditioned thinking. And pretty soon you say, boy, I wish I could be in a nice, warm, comfortable living room. It'd be so nice. And God, I'm spending too much time outdoors. I should spend more time indoors. And, you know, we take our thinking with us wherever we go. It's been nice for me to discover magic in my house, so that sometimes I'm walking down the hall in our house from the kitchen to our bedroom and it's just alive with beauty. And I feel like I'm floating, right? There have been times in nature when I get worried or in my thinking and I don't see beauty and experience beauty anywhere. Now, there's another way of answering your question though. Just because I can experience magic anywhere doesn't mean there's any shoulds about this. The more I am falling out of thinking, my personal thinking, the more wisdom takes me where I need to go. And sometimes I know I have nothing on my mind. But I'm experiencing magic in the house, and wisdom still takes me for a walk down to the beach. It keeps drawing me outdoors. And it tells me when it's time to go again. And then there's just this natural cycle, and it's different for different people. The poet Emily Dickinson stayed in one room her whole life and wrote poetry there, and it was filled with magic. Never left her house, never left that room. You have other people, John Muir, the great naturalist, he just kept being drawn outdoors. It's not like one is right and one is wrong. Who knows where wisdom will take you? That's part of the magic. Can't be understood. I do know that when I fall out of my thinking about life, that balance is found perfectly by wisdom. And when I try to take that over, it doesn't work very well.
That's it. That's it. That's very true. When I'm right here, right now, it doesn't matter where I am. And when I'm creating, when I'm creating in whatever way I'm creating, cooking, cleaning, anything is a creation. Connecting with a friend, editing in someone's art state, all of this is creation. When I'm in that flow, it just feels so beautiful. Yeah. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
I think that's a great question, because we all have places that we enjoy and that we feel good in, and it's so easy to then place our happiness on that. And I think it's having that reminder again that that space exists within us. And I know for myself, one of the most obvious times of that was being on an aeroplane, having to come home early because my then father-in-law had passed away, and I hadn't got my meal ordered, my bags had been lost, and I sat in this seat and I was just burst into tears, and I was in hell. And then throughout this it ended up being 2 very long haul flights. My experience went from hell to peace to laughter to gratitude to sorrow. Like, it was such an incredible experience, because I literally was just sat in this seat, wedged between 2 people I didn't know, and I really saw, like, where is this experience, where is this life, where is this reality happening? And it was such a wonderful example. And then again, like Dicken was saying, I've had times when I've been in the most beautiful, incredible places, in absolute hell in my mind, and then there's been times when it's seemingly not such a nice place, but I'm just at peace, and everything looks wondrous, and I'm grateful. And I think it's that constant kind of reminder of, we're not limited or conditioned or bounded in any way. We're boundless, and that freedom and that place is there, and it's with us. And it could be in nature, or it could be in a room. And like Dicken was saying, I still love to be outside. I've loved being up in the Lake District and getting out and walking and breathing in the air and learning. But I do also know I went for a walk the other night in a bad mood, and I stomped around and I didn't really see anything. And you start to see that, and I think I love that you can keep learning. I think we went to a standing stones in Scotland, and there's a man who's gone back and he observes them every day, I think for about 10 years.
He's an American fellow,
yeah, he's from America,
yeah.
But he had an experience there, so now he goes back every day and he watches, and he watches the sun and how it falls, and he's making all these notes, and it kind of seems quite wacky, but at the same time he said some really beautiful things. Like he said, when you just observe, you learn anything. If you observe anything, there's learning to be had. And it's almost like he started to realize that the learning came from within. That you can look at anything and there's learning there. But it was interesting, because part of me was like, wow, like he feels like compelled to go back to this same place every single day, and he thinks that experience came from that place. But at the same time, he has learned and shares some incredible stuff. So it was a really beautiful example of, like, again, I don't know why he's been drawn back there.
But it's beautiful to see how magic can show up. What looks like almost insanity to us. I mean, this man literally goes to this standing stone. It's called Cairn Holy in Galloway. It's very beautiful. But this man's absolute dedication to go and spend all this time, he is there. Every single time we've turned up, he's been there. And he's an American fellow who turned up there 10 years ago, and every single day he turns up. And he studies the sun, he studies the shadows. It to me, when I look at it, I can think he's mad. He's mad. All that weather that Scotland gets, and he's there, rain or shine, no matter what, taking down his notes, doing his measurements. But that makes that man's heart sing. And I love that. It's like people find magic, and there's the potential for finding magic in absolutely anything. One man's trash is another man's treasure, I think, is one of those sayings. It's such a beautiful thing. And I know myself, things that I didn't like for so long, all of a sudden I start to like them. I can tolerate them, I can do them, I'm interested in it. It's so interesting, the illusory nature of our mind to create these illusions of likes and dislikes, and how quickly that can change. But what that beautiful thing that he said, just observing, you learn. And I feel like this is what he was speaking about there. He was speaking about this deeper intelligence. He didn't put words to it. He didn't have some fancy way of speaking about it. He just said, when you observe, you learn. And it's such a powerful thing to start to realize that learning doesn't come from a teacher. Learning comes through us. Everything that we've learned as a species, all the amazing technological advances, they have literally manifested in the mind of beings that we call the human. They've literally come from nowhere into creation. And there is a limitless potential for that. The limit only exists as a belief, which is a thought. Possible or impossible are thoughts. It is unlimited potential. And when we got to speak to this man, it was like, it is a beautiful metaphor for the principles. Where we focus our attention, our experience flows, and it feels like the more I've looked in this direction, the more I have found beauty in life, and the more I've found useful information coming to the forefront of my mind. Just to observe, we learn. The teacher and the learner are one. There's Carmel has said, I'm presuming there's an I in front of this. I would like to step back more into the state of no thought or personal thought and lean or drop more into the infinite not known.
From nothingness to allness.
Oh yeah, from nothingness to allness. Carmel, would you like to expand on that?
Basically, to experience more what's said, used to say, the quiet mind, the stillness of mind. Because sometimes delusions can be so damn real. Just when Dicken mentions most of a lot of times to disengage from the person, from the ego, basically, from the ego, because it can be so compelling. I know maybe it's like nature. You go in and out of it, maybe, or to accept it as it is. just like a noise of life, personal life. I don't know how to express it exactly. Just to fall, would like to fall more often into that state. I experienced this fully only once, really, really fully once, and it was, I know it's there. Just, that's all I can say. Because I hammer I hammer my head a lot, basically. I'm doing it, I'm the creator, I'm the thinker. I'm creating it all.
You know, that's why I've continued to listen to people talk about the principles for 35 years or whatever, however long it's been, is because at some point in that deep listening, something shifts inside me. And I start to spend, when that shift happens, I start to spend a little less time in my personal thinking and more time just standing wide open to life without being caught up in as much personal thinking. So that's the benefit of reflecting on truth. That's why none of us can come to the end of it. I've had insights this year that have really been helpful, that have helped me have even less thinking on my mind than I did before. More faith and trust in allowing that deeper wisdom to live me when it feels like I'm not there to do it. And so it's just a natural, and Carmel, you're right, that it's natural to go in and out of personal thought. Personal thought's not the enemy. I'm glad I can conceptualize and use my mind like a computer, and I'm thrilled that when I start overusing or misusing my mind, there's a tension or a stress that starts showing up, or a feeling like something's out of sorts. And it's an invitation to close the laptop altogether.
That's it, the habitual misuse of it. That's my...
Yeah.
After years of misusing it, that's
I know.
And the only sort of, I'm fairly new to this from last July, basically, but I'm all the time listening. When I have some time, I listen. I've listened, but the magic, I've listened to Sid a lot of times. Sid has, or had, or whatever, he still has that magic. That magic, I'm still looking for that magical thought, basically.
Well, you're in good company, Carmel. It's,
I know.
You know, everybody enjoys.
I'm grateful for this, yes.
Everybody really enjoys that experience of being beyond our personal thinking.
Yes.
It's where we feel most at ease, and we're lived beautifully then. Yes. And the feeling is really wonderful. And so, I mean, that's helpful for me, is that one of the things I've learned more recently is that only when I go beyond all of my personal thinking, in other words, when I just let it all go, like I do when I go to sleep, I let go of everything I'm thinking, or I wouldn't be able to fall asleep. Well, I didn't know that any time during the day I can let go of everything I'm thinking. And then I get more and more familiar with that space where I'm not holding thought. I don't care if I have thoughts. I don't care if I have a lot of thoughts. I'm just not really paying attention to them, and I'm just resting in the now. And I'm getting more familiar with that space and more comfortable in that space. And the longer I spend in that state, the less that it feels like my thinking just melts away. My ego just melts away. And I'm just an ordinary schmuck. Right? Just completely ordinary. It's just, in a sense, I've gone back to where I started. I'm back to being like, it's what the Tibetans call newborn consciousness.
Pure consciousness.
Newborn consciousness, and what a lot of people call non-dual consciousness. What Sid Banks often called non-conceptual being. Right? That's what we're all looking for. That's what we're all looking for is, you know, the Tibetans have a neat way of describing it. They say, first you have somebody reintroduce it to you, because we get so accustomed to being in our intellect, we almost have forgotten what it's like to be in our natural mind. So we get reintroduced to it, and then we begin to see that through understanding, we can get more and more familiar with that space. And then after a while, you begin to stabilize in that state. So reintroduction, familiarization, and stabilization. And it's a natural evolutionary process, very natural. Right? As Sid would say over and over again, it's the most ordinary thing in the world. Right? It takes a lot of effort to stay in our intellect. It's the most natural thing in the world to just rest in the now. I just didn't know that's where the magic happened. I didn't know it was so ordinary. I didn't know I was a thought away from that at any moment. I didn't know it's always available to me. I do now, even though I can forget that and lose sight of it. I keep waking back up to that truth. So, as my friend Michael Neal says, you just stay in the conversation. You keep reflecting on truth and listening to people point toward truth. And at a certain point, things shift, and what you're hoping for happens naturally then.
When you described about how you experienced that space, I remember when I woke up to the principles, it was mind-blowing. And I actively went in search for this space. Tried to think my way there. Tried to do everything I could. I've been to the place where I woke up, and it's the same place. Nothing's happened since going to visit that place. But I think if it taught me one thing, it taught me that exploration and going in search for that place again. It taught me that I was living in dissatisfaction with my life as it stood. And that dissatisfaction is a thought. It's a thought that doesn't look like thought. It's a thought that looks as though it's grounded in some form of fact. And the moment I realized that I can find fulfillment and contentment in this state as being a human being, because we are absolutely perfect, every single one of us, exactly as we sit, we're perfect. I realized I don't need to go in search of that place. But just having touched that place has taught me so much. And I feel like there is this massive drive for people to try and find this spiritual self. We are the spiritual self that we're looking for. It's like we go in search of spiritual. This whole thing, this laptop is built of spiritual. I think the beauty and the simplicity of the principles was that the spiritual is every single moment. even the hell is spiritual because it's all been brought from this divine gift.
So
I think if anything, the gift that waking up to the principles has brought to me is the perfection of everything. The imperfection of my life is simply thought, a belief. And the more we, as Dicken's saying, and as Joseph, who studied the stones, the more we just observe the nature of our mind, the more we learn from ourselves, the more satisfaction we can find in every single moment.
I've just noticed the time. I've been completely time warp.
even time is just awesome.
Is there anything else you'd like to say, Dicken, or is there any last questions that people have?
Dicken, anything you want to say?
Oh, I loved what you just said, Dave. I like the word, with magic, I like to include the word ordinary.
Mm.
It's the realization that every moment is perfect as it is, but for my thinking that says it shouldn't be this way. So I judge it, I try to stop it, fix it, change it, resist it, which is a huge, that's the trying you were talking about, Dave.
Becomes a full-time job.
Trying to get from here to there. When we have more time, I'd love to share more with people what I'm seeing about how the world of our personal thinking always creates time and difference and better and trying. And that's always going to be part of that world. That's the part of the world of duality. And there's nothing wrong with that world if you understand how it works. If we understand how it works, we can enjoy being in that world more and more, perfect as it is. Or as Sid would say, you get to use your personal thinking. It's a tool. You get to use it more and more wisely. But then you begin to see that you can step beyond the conceptual mind into a world that's free of time and better and dissatisfaction and search and effort and trying. And you get more and more familiar with that world. And then the goal isn't to live there all the time, is to get really good at going back and forth between these two worlds, because they're really the same world. And one is the world of form and one is formless. So you get good at dancing back and forth between those two worlds. And then it's just ordinary, but there's so much magic in that ordinary, it's unbelievable. So you get to have your feelings and thoughts and low moods and upsets, but they come and go as part of nature, so there's no resistance and no judgment. That's really, so then we become more compassionate. As you were saying, Jenny, you become more compassionate toward your own humanity. And then you can be compassionate towards other people's humanity. So
That's a world changer.
that's has been an absolute monumental shift in my understanding in the past couple of years. So that's what I'm looking forward to sharing when we get together.
Everyday magic.
Everyday magic. Sid said when he had his enlightenment experience, it seemed just ordinary to him. He just fell out of his personal thinking so far that he experienced the freedom of being free of the limitations of all of our own thinking. But it seemed ordinary to him. It seemed, that's why he felt like this is available to every single human being. Because as you said, Dave, it's already our nature. It's not creating that world. It's realizing that world is here in every moment.
And if people would like to hear Dicken talking about that, then you are more than welcome to join us on the 20th.
Jenny, because Jenny, man, when she gets going, I tell you.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Dave and I are going to bring duct tape, so it's certainly just wrap it around because.
Yeah, no.
Jenny has seen so much. She's been a really great teacher for me as well. You know, I have my walks with Dave where we talk about how the principles are creating all of nature, not just psychological nature. And boy, that's really been helpful for us. But listening to Jenny talk about what she's seen about life has been very helpful. Jenny and I shared a lot in terms of how anxious we were at one point and how shy and how painful experiences are. And I still have moments like that. They still come and go. I'm not quite living in so much pain around that, and neither is Jenny. So fun stories. Everybody has them. So it'll be fun to hear people's stories too.
I was looking forward to this before, but I'm actually like even more looking forward to it now. I can't wait.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. And in the evenings, there's some beautiful walks in the local area. Lisa, who's in there, put your hand up, give us a wave. There's a local tour guide right there. So we've got a local tour guide, and there's some beautiful walks. When people have had enough, there are some fantastic places just a few minutes away from Kendal Town Centre. Some really spectacular views, some beautiful landscapes. It really is a beautiful place to just come and unwind. So the 3-day event that we're having is from the 25th to the 27th of May this year. And if people are interested, if people have got any more questions, Jen said, oh no, you said on the last thing we did. If people have got any questions, they can email us at info@freedomthinking.co.uk.
And I'm dicken.bettinger@gmail.com.
Perfect.
You can write questions to any of us.
Perfect. And we're going to have the information. Are you going to have the information on your website, Dicken?
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
It's already on there.
Cool. So the information's on Dicken's website. And what's your website address?
The number 3 principlesmentoring.com. And the information's, the link to it's on my event page.
Cool. Well, it's on our event page as well at freedomthinking.co.uk. And on there's also a downloadable PDF, isn't there? on the events section, there's also a downloadable PDF which has got information about how to get there. It's got information about trains from the north and the south of England. In most airports coming into the UK will have a train attached to them. Driving, it's got all the information about parking and information about where the event is held and times that they're going to be rough times, because with these things, conversations can kind of come and go. So there's a rough schedule for the day, but we are allowing time for people to go and have some space and quiet if that's what they're looking for. And there's loads of lovely cafes in Kendal where people can go and friends can meet up and they can go and have cups of tea and coffee. The only thing that we would suggest is it is May bank holiday in the Lake District. The Lake District, for people who don't know where the Lake District is, it's in the very northwest of England. It's a heavily touristed area. It's very beautiful, very popular. So we would recommend booking accommodation early. There are hostels locally. There's loads of Airbnbs and hotels. Camping, yeah, awesome.
Had a couple of people say they're camping.
Yep. My kind of people. So we would suggest getting accommodation booked early, because accommodation isn't included in the package of the event. But any problems, any questions, Dicken and or ourselves are more than happy to answer your questions. Anything else you'd like to say? Oh, it's £295 if paying via bank transfer, and £310 if pay, £305 if paying by PayPal.
I just wanted to say thank you for everyone for joining, and thank you, Dicken. I know we have gone over on time.
Yeah.
And trying to do all the practical stuff at the end, it always seems, I'm glad you did that, because I feel like I've kind of drifted into this really nice, peaceful place, and
Killjoy.
The logistics all seem a bit much, but thank you everyone for joining.
Yeah, thank you
contact
so much.
us if you have any questions.
Yeah, and thank you, Dicken. Really looking forward to this, man.
Yeah, me too. Really, really looking forward. Bye, everybody. Bye, Ishka.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, thanks. Bye-bye.
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 Bye.
Buenas noches.
Buenos Aires.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.